I was really young back when this all was going on, so my vision or my perception of it might be skewed. But for me, I was thinking, why is Dale Jarrett going to drive for this new team that has no foundation and no history, and he's just won, and he's leaving a team with all the history. And you talk about taking risks and betting on yourself.
Yep.
What did you see in that opportunity with Joe Gibbs that made you convinced that this was the move for you?
Well, there were a couple of things there, and that was, as far as making a decision, certainly one of the two hardest decisions in my professional career to make, to leave the Wood Brothers, who had given me this. I mean, without the Wood Brothers, without Eddie Wood making that call in 1990 to put me in that car, I don't know where my career would have gone, how it would evolve. I was going to keep trying, but if you look back and say we all owe someone for something along the way, the Wood Brothers are those people for me. I mean, I fought and I battled along the way in a lot of different ways, but without that chance, that second chance of getting back into the Cup Series, we wouldn't be. I don't know that we'd be sitting there, and I'm fortunate enough to have won a championship and then so very blessed and fortunate to be nominated and elected into the Hall of Fame. Without that, so why am I thinking that I might even go with a football coach that's starting a race team for the first time, and he's going to get all of this equipment from Rick Hendrick, so somebody you're going to be competing against, you're not getting the best stuff that they have. Why would you do this? But Joe Gibbs is a very persuasive person, and he's successful at whatever he does. And I've told people this. I knew from my first meeting and talk with him. I remember the first time that he called was after the Dover race in June. And I laughed because I thought it was one of my friends playing a joke on me. It's because I'd gotten home from Dover, and he said it was Joe Gibbs. And so I started laughing. And he said, no, I'd met him in Talladega earlier that year.
Yeah.
And anyway, we had these meetings and started talking about it. And so he had this sponsorship from Interstate Battery. So I met Norm and Tommy Miller from there. They seemed to have a great plan. And I remember in talking to my wife, Kelly, and talking to my dad, they were like, and Kelly had become such good friends with everyone within the Wood Brothers organization, that entire family, Carol and Nancy and everybody there. And they were such special friends and still are to this day. And she was probably having a harder time with the decision I was about to make than even I was. But I told her, I said, these were my words. I said, I see this, and it goes back to what you had talked about. The Wood Brothers, we won this race, and we ran good in a number of other races, but it wasn't what I considered, that they weren't the Wood Brothers of old, that top A team. And I even though this is a brand new team that was going to start out, I said, this is my chance to win the Daytona 500 because of the Hendrick stuff and stuff like that. And so I said, I'm going to make the move. And once again, it was more money once again. So, that factored in. Here I was getting a contract that was, double of what I was making. And so it just seemed like the right thing to do at that time. And I was willing. My life has been, I still look at it every day, my life has been chance and a gamble and taking chances on myself. And I felt like that I had done everything to say this is my best opportunity to move forward.
But what did he say? You said he was persuasive.
Yeah.
Did he say you're going to win the Daytona 500 if you come here?
No. Here's what he said. He said, here's what we have. He said, I have a sponsor. He said, and I have a deal with Rick Hendrick. And so we're going to get cars and engines from them. He said, I'm going to allow you to pick your crew chief, who you want to run and start this organization. And so I was immediately, once it got to that point, Jimmy Makar, my brother-in-law, is who I wanted to do that. He was working for Rusty Wallace and Blue Max Racing at the time. And but he said, you're going to he said, we're going to do this in a different way. But so it wasn't anything reassuring because he said, I've gone and basically this is, I'm not just throwing these numbers out. I think Joe has told this story a number of times, but he had $850,000 they had borrowed to do this. Now, we didn't have an engine shop or any of that, because getting all of that from Hendrick. But, he said, I promise, he said, I know people. He said, we're going to get the best people here. He said, it may take us a little while to build this into the winning organization you want. He said, but I'm going to do that. He said, I'm not borrowing more than this $850,000. If things happen and things don't go our way and we run through that, he said, I'm not borrowing more money than that. So was that reassuring?
No,
it wasn't. But he, obviously Joe is a very religious man and in his beliefs, and he's very persuasive in that manner. He helped change my life in a very positive way, in the way that I went about life and looking at things for myself and my entire family. And I just believed that Joe Gibbs was going to be successful, and I wanted to be a part of that. I mean, he was a winning football coach, not because he was better at X's and O's than everybody else out there. It's because he was better at recognizing talent and getting the best people around him, from the players to the coaches and the people that understood his program. And that's what he's done at Joe Gibbs Racing, and it's one of the most successful in that now.
Yeah. So winning the Daytona 500, how does that change your life? Everybody says it changes your life. How did it change Dale Jarrett's life?
It does change your life. I mean, you're a Daytona 500 champion, as you well know, and that's how you're known the rest of your life. But at the immediate time, so this was our second year.
I know.
The first Daytona 500 didn't go so well. It was going great. We qualified well, so I'm back in 92 here before I get to the Daytona 500. We qualified well, so this kind of goes to that $850,000 that he wasn't going to borrow more money. So I spent out. I'm racing up front in the qualifying race, but I get loose, tear up a car, so we have to go to a backup car and start last in the field. But we had qualified good enough so we could start, even though we had no points or anything that we're on. Go to the back of the field. Drive all the way up into the front, and I'm battling Sterling Marlin, Davey Allison, Ernie Irvin for the lead. And Ernie, actually, I was running fourth, and Ernie makes a move, and it creates an accident.
Yeah, on the back straightaway.
On the back straightaway.
Yeah, he got ran over for that one.
Yeah.
in the press.
And I got turned. I thought I was through it, and I got clipped in the right rear. And so it sent me head on into the wall in the backstretch, and I just kind of slid down the track. And thinking everything was kind of going to be okay, but obviously there's smoke and you can't, everything. Anyway, Ken Schrader, I find then things were almost to a quiet thing, and then all of a sudden I got hit in the right door. I mean, it pushed the frame rail over to the transmission.
Yeah.
That got hit so hard. It wasn't Schrader's fault. He just thought he had an opening too. He didn't realize there was a car on the other side of that smoke that he couldn't see through there. So we tore up two cars. I'm thinking, this $850,000 might not go too far. This might have been a bad decision. But we had run really good, and then we had some good races in '92. Battled Alan Colwicky at Bristol for a race win, finished second to him there. So, a lot of good things happened. So, but 93, we had a great test, everything. We pull into, or when I get to the garage area for the Daytona 500, I told my wife Kelly that I came back from we used to test twice at Daytona, and I came back from the one in January, and I said, we've got a really good car. I said, I'm going to win the Daytona 500. And I've always been pretty confident in my ability and myself, and I might be really, really cocky on the inside, but I don't generally show that on the outside. But didn't tell it to a lot of people, but I told her and I told my dad. I said, I'm going to win this race.
Yeah.
And we get to the garage area, and we happen to be in garage stall 11. And obviously 11 was my dad's number. That's always a good number for me. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is lining up good. We're in good shape. So qualify on the front row with Kyle Petty sat on the pole. And we had a fast car all day. And it was just unbelievable. But get down to the end, and there was this rookie that was in my way named Jeff Gordon that I was trying to get by to get to your dad, who was leading the race. But he had taken 2 tires, I believe, and I took 4. Jimmy Maycar called 4 tires, and I knew my car had out-handled everybody all day. And so I finally put a move on Gordon and get by him. And I knew your dad's car was so loose. I said, if I can just get to the back bumper, I can get him loose enough. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get there. But anyway, fortunately, I only had to worry about that for a lap.
So you got by Gordon with how many to go?
3 to go, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 to go. And so then I got behind Dale. And so then we, as we're coming to get the white flag, go into turn 3, I'd got a good enough run to get really close to Dale going into 3, and he just had his hands full. I mean, he was turning right going into the corner, and but nobody else could have driven that car and finished 20th with it. They had to tore it up before then, but he's leading the race still driving this thing. Of course, at this time he hadn't won the Daytona 500.
Right.
He had things had happened and they'd kept him from winning. But anyway, get there, and he literally can't turn. So I got close enough to push him into the corner a little faster than he had been, and he went up the track, and I went underneath, and then Jeff Bodine followed me. I think he was driving the 15 car at that time, and he followed me and pushed me by. And so I literally led that last lap, and I think I'd led before then, earlier in the race, but got by and then just blocked. And it's just a good call, good pit call, and having the best handling car. And then, yes, it changes your life. I mean, opportunities. I mean, we knew that some things might come away, but personal services still started coming along, and more sponsorship for Joe Gibbs Racing, and it just changes, And we went on to finish 4th that year in the points. I think your dad won the championship that year, but here's a second-year team that we ran in the top 5 in the points, and didn't win another race that year, but we battled hard.